Hi, fantasy readers. This is Karyne Norton, your fellow book binger, and you are listening to the Finding Fantasy Reads podcast, where you can test out a new fantasy story every single week to find your next favorite author. Today's story features a young woman challenging her nation's throne. It's written by Ashley Schaller, an award-winning author who prefers tea over coffee, will never say no to puppy snuggles, and proudly wears the title of Dog Mom. When not writing, she can often be found reading her next favorite book, baking, obsessing over owls, but only the cute cartoon ones, or learning new crochet patterns. I'm betting she's made a cute crocheted cartoon owl at some point, and if not, I think she should. Maybe we should all bombard her with cute owl crochet patterns. I'll be narrating her short story today, but stick around to the end or check out today's show notes to see where you can find more from Ashley, or where you can send her owl crochet patterns, as well as how to enter our last giveaway of Season 3. And as a bonus, I'll be giving you some early instructions for how to place your votes for this year's Finding Fantasy Reads Awards. For now, please enjoy Queen's Game by Ashley Schaller. A crown didn't make her a queen, but the ceremony ahead would. Amaryllis's hands shook as she removed the tiara and placed it oh so carefully back onto the soft cushion. By rights, she shouldn't even be in here. But she'd needed to see her reflection, to feel the press of the tiara against her brow, to be reminded what the weight of a kingdom felt like. Heavy was the crown that represented her future. Their future. If only things could be different. If it hadn't come to this. But there were no choices left. There was nothing for it but to walk the gauntlet and win back the throne that had been stolen from her bloodline. Breathe. Amaryllis inhaled the sharp floral and earthy scent of the perfume clouding the space. She drew up her hood and slipped from the room, leaving the imposter princess snoring in bed. How tempting it would have been to end everything now, in the dead of night, just like the impostors had. But Amaryllis was no cheat. If she was to wear the crown, it would be by right, not trickery. With all the caution in the world, Amaryllis eased the bedroom door shut behind her. All well, my princess? A form stepped from the shadows, dipping into a sloppy bow. Amaryllis's lips quirked, but no amount of scolding had been enough to break him from the habit. Hush, Oliver, you're going to get us caught. He fell in beside her as she tiptoed down the corridor. If I remember correctly, it was you who insisted we sneak in at night. And it was you who suggested we strut in during broad daylight. Well, it is your home, after all. Former home, she huffed, and soon to be your home once more. Tiny detail, that. I have to win first. The very words pinched her heart tight and made her hands ball into fists. Breathe. You doubt? Don't you? How could he not? Her family had lost the throne once. It could easily slip from her fingers again. One wrong move, and it would all be over. Never. The ceremony has all been for show for years now. There hasn't been a challenger in decades. She won't see it coming. There were advantages when you were supposed to be dead. Do you think she'll like her present? Amaryllis smirked as she pictured the chunk of fool's gold sitting beside her cousin's pillow. It ought to shake her at the very least. Good. We want to throw her off her game. Hush. We need to leave. His mouth quirked to the side as if fighting further arguments. Well, he'd just have to stifle it. They were too close to be caught now. Amaryllis snagged his wrist and jerked him through the halls of the family wing. In honor of the family's privacy, few were allowed in this section of the palace, fewer still at night, which worked in their favor. It was a bonus that her cousin always had slept like the dead. Amaryllis came to a stop before the great tapestry depicting a rearing unicorn with a vining flower circling his hind legs. Her family's crest. You're sure about this? Oliver shot a look over his shoulder. Amaryllis brushed aside the thick tapestry, fingers searching. Oh, so you do doubt. Not you, exactly. Only your memory. You were a child the last time you were here. The last thing I want is to get stuck in the walls of this stuffy old place and rot away. Almost. There. Her fingers found the jagged edge of a false stone and pushed. The hidden doorway swung in with a mighty groan. There, see? No need to be so dramatic. I'm guessing they haven't used the passages in a while. Oliver eyed a giant spiderweb stretched across the right corner of the doorway, glistening in the light of one of the castle lanterns. One wouldn't need to unless they were fleeing. The words came out tight, and Amaryllis swallowed against the memories fighting to surface. I'd almost dare to wager they don't know they're here. Or at least don't know all of the passages. Who's there? A torch bobbed in the distance. Amaryllis's adrenaline spiked. The opening of the door must have been louder than she'd accounted for. She grabbed Oliver and tugged him inside, slipping the door closed with another rumble. If her cousin didn't already know about the passages, she soon would. Quickly! Her feet found the familiar groove of stairs, one hand balanced against the dirt-streaked wall as a failsafe should her memory betray her. See, this is why I said we should have come in the daylight. So we could have even more soldiers breathing down our necks? No, so we could blend into the bustle of the daily activities. Amaryllis didn't bother responding. He knew as well as she that all would be lost if her cousin spotted her. Hence the secret passages and the sneaking. Perhaps she'd been a fool to come, but it had worked. Something inside her burned all the brighter after handling the tiara. Amaryllis hadn't been a princess in a long time, but the tiara had reminded her what she was fighting for. Not just her future, but that of Oliver, of all the people. An entire kingdom needed her to win. A deep rumble sounded behind them. Amaryllis's pulse skittered. They'd been discovered. She picked up her pace, throwing aside all caution as she descended the steps in the darkness. We shouldn't have come. Amaryllis dared to breathe the words when they reached a landing. Fiddlesticks. This is the most excitement we've had in weeks. Leave it to Oliver to make a joke out of it. Which way, my princess? Left. Not her original route, but it would be the unexpected one. You can swim, can't you? Can I swim, or am I good at it? Those are two very different things, you know. Will you drown if you hit water? Probably not. Good. Amaryllis grabbed his hand, weaving their fingers together. Voices and footsteps echoed in the distance. Why do you ask? He'd find out soon enough. She pulled him through another left turn, down another round of steps, then straight. The voices grew quieter the farther they ran. Stale air clung to the passages, and Amaryllis fought to avoid inhaling too deeply. I don't like it when you go quiet like that. They came to a dead end. There should be a door. Amaryllis ran a hand over the wall. The latch was different, she remembered that much. Not a stone, but a rusted, misshapen nail. With a twist, Amaryllis cranked the hidden door open. Furious wind greeted them, pulling her hair free from its style and sending it slashing across her face. Oliver's shirt beat against him as he clung to the edge of the doorway. You're crazy! The crash of waves against rock nearly drowned out his words. Funny, but he'd sworn trust not so long ago. Keeping hold of his hand, Amaryllis eased onto the cliff edge separating the palace from the steep drop-off. The door eased shut with a definitive click. There was no way to reopen it from the outside, and there was only one way down. They wouldn't die. Probably. Amaryllis? Oliver's skin washed pale. She squeezed his hand, the best comfort she could offer. Ready? He shook his head, eyes begging her to find another way. Jump. I think I have pneumonia. Oliver gave a little sniffle beside her. You're fine. Amaryllis tightened the bracers at her wrists. I wouldn't call half-drowned fine. You're the one who said you could swim. She touched a shaky hand to her hair. Her braid stood secure. There was nothing left to do but wait. Probably. I said probably. And that wasn't exactly a swim. Most people would have required a boat for that kind of trek. We've never been most people. No, that we haven't. His gaze lingered on her. Her stomach gave a little flip. Whether from nerves or his attention, she couldn't tell. Maybe a bit of both. Are you ready for this, Amaryllis? Not in a million years. How could she ever be prepared to face her greatest fears? For that's what the ring would throw at her in an attempt to break her. Worse, anyone watching would see those fears come to life. She blew out a breath. I don't think I ever will be, but it has to be done. Iris will be furious. Amaryllis nodded. She'd tasted her cousin's wrath before. Though the physical scars had faded, the interior ones would never be truly gone. You have my vote, my princess. Oliver winked. Warmth heated her core, and she drank in the brightness of his smile. Without him, she'd never be standing here, tucked in the shadows of the castle's stadium, awaiting the ceremony that would change everything. Beyond their hideout, the stands were filled with nobility and commoners alike. An ivory throne sat on a raised dais at the other side of a ring lined with torches. The very place buzzed with tension. Drummers stepped to their stations, pounding out a rhythm that set Amaryllis's heart racing. Oliver stepped closer, his presence at her back offering strength. A pair of large iron doors swung open, and Iris swept inside, a long purple cape whipping behind her. Dark charcoal lined her eyes, giving her a fierce look, as did her outfit of dark purple leather with splashes of yellow and black at her shoulders meant to mimic her flower namesake. She looked every inch the fierce ruler she claimed to be. Iris strutted across the stadium, coming to a stop below the dais where the kingdom's steward waited. If the fool's gold had rattled her, she didn't show it. Amaryllis rubbed her fingers against her slick palm, her heartbeat accelerating. Oliver touched her elbow, her anchor in the madness. The drummers brought their beat to a quiet thrum in the background. Princess Iris, the day has come. You are of age. Will you face the ring in order to claim the throne? Steward Grimson's voice carried throughout the stadium. The crowd leaned in with bated breath, ready to catch every word. Amaryllis found herself tilting forward too, straining to study the face of her father's old friend. He'd managed to keep the kingdom from falling to pieces in her father's absence. Did it hurt to see Iris standing before him, and not Amaryllis? Iris raised her chin. I will face the ring to prove I hold the strength to rule. A holler of approval rose from the crowd. Amaryllis's stomach twisted. What if she had this all wrong? What if somewhere along the line Iris had won their loyalty after all? You're 10 times the princess she's ever been, Oliver murmured in her ear. Are there any blood relatives who challenge Princess Iris's claim? Perhaps it was her imagination, but Amaryllis could have sworn Grimson winced at the question. For years, it had been merely a custom. Today, it changed everything. Iris's lips quirked into a smirk. After all, there weren't supposed to be any blood relatives left. Amaryllis tightened her jaw and stepped from her alcove. I challenge her claim. An immediate hush fell over the stadium. All focus locked on her. Amaryllis only had eyes for Iris. Her cousin flushed deep red, her hands balled at her sides in tight fists. How hard it must be to face a ghost. Amaryllis stopped across from her. Hello, cousin. Sparks and venom danced through Iris's gaze. What is the meaning of this? Grimson demanded. But he wouldn't recognize her, would he? She'd been a child the last time they stood face to face. Amaryllis drew her chin high. I am Princess Amaryllis, daughter of King Leonard and Queen Dahlia, rightful heir to the throne. Lies! Surely Iris would win little favor with a screech like that. Princess Amaryllis died 6 years ago. She would say that, wouldn't she? She'd stood by as her father carried out the executions. Their coup had been successful in all ways but one. Her being not dead was their one misstep. I can assure you, I am very much alive. Forgive me, miss. Grimson's gaze searched her face as if hunting for the truth.
But I cannot allow you to challenge without proof of your identity.
His eyes begged her to reveal it. Good thing she'd come prepared. She beckoned Oliver forward. Here is my witness. He pulled me out of the muck on the day I fled the palace 6 years ago. Amaryllis centered her attention on Iris. I think you'll find that along with the princess, her signet ring has been missing all these years. Whose body did you use, Iris? Her cousin flinched, but she kept her mouth pressed tight. Wise move, that. Anything said here would be remembered for all of history. Grimson eyed Oliver.
You'd be willing to swear in a court of law that this is Princess Amaryllis?
With everything I have, sir. Oliver withdrew the signet ring from the cord beneath his shirt. The ring, as she claims. The crowd buzzed. Too many voices to make out the words. A forgery! Iris hissed. You'll find the proper engravements and authenticity marks on the inner side of the band, Amaryllis said. Grimson took the ring, turning it over.
It is as she says.
Amaryllis stepped further into the light of the closest torch. Grimson inhaled sharply, gaze locked on hers.
Princess Amaryllis, you look just like your mother.
Fatherly affection warmed his eyes. Iris stormed close to the old man. You cannot do this! I was proclaimed crown princess. Therefore this impostor has no claim to the throne.
You cannot deny her heritage.
Grimson's voice remained calm. Fire burned in Iris's eyes as she turned a loathing gaze toward Amaryllis. Amaryllis raised her chin and folded her hands. I propose a solution. Let us both face the ring. The ring will determine the rightful queen. She cocked an eyebrow. Iris caught the challenge, head tilting high. Agreed. Both princesses turned to Grimson. Amaryllis slid a glance toward the crowd. They leaned forward, waiting for the steward's answer. Imposter that she was, Iris had 6 years to gain the loyalty of Amaryllis's people. No doubt many had been looking forward to seeing her take the throne. Would they grieve at Amaryllis's reappearance?
I will allow both princesses to compete, if you are in agreement.
Grimson directed the question to the onlookers. The bystanders roared their approval, stomping their feet until the stadium shook with the thundering beat. This was it, the moment Amaryllis had been waiting for.
Then let them compete.
Amaryllis's pulse thundered in her ears as she stepped inside the ring. Tall torches surrounded her on every side, adding both heat and light to the area. Iris faced off across from her, checking her purple suit, bracers, and the metal plate covering her chest, cloak discarded. Amaryllis had nothing so fine. Simple leather guards at her wrists, a thick tunic over leggings, and sturdy boots. It was all she and Oliver had been able to scrape together. It would have to do. She turned her wrist, studying the unicorn crest Oliver had burned into the underside of her right guard, the one detail that spoke of her birthright. 2 swords stood at the center of the ring, tips stabbed deep into the sand, hilts awaiting wielders. Iris eyed the weapons, feet braced, determination written in every line of her form. Her cousin was playing to win. But then again, so was she. Amaryllis's gaze trailed the crowd until she found Oliver at the edge, just outside the perimeter of the ring. He offered her a nod. She could do this. She must. Amaryllis steadied her footing and settled her focus on the sword. With a final beat, the drums silenced.
Begin!
Grimson's voice boomed through the stadium. Amaryllis raced forward, reaching her sword seconds after Iris. Her cousin swung, her blow aimed for Amaryllis's neck. She ducked the swing, twisted, and brought her sword high to still the next strike. Iris growled and pulled away, sweat beading on her face. Amaryllis circled, watching every blink of her cousin's eyes. There. They narrowed seconds before she leapt, sword spearing toward Amaryllis's unprotected middle. Amaryllis caught the blow on her blade and kicked out, her boot finding the inside of Iris's foot. Iris cried out and stumbled, catching herself with one hand to keep from tumbling to the sand. Amaryllis shook stray hairs from her eyes, chest heaving as she fought to catch her breath. The sand shifted, lengths of chains sweeping aside the grains, links spreading out across the ring like metal vines. Amaryllis backpedaled, even as Iris did the same. The chains grew, creating a wall between them. A shackle leapt for Amaryllis's foot. She scrambled away, boots edging close to the line marking the ring's boundary. To step over would be to forfeit. She swept her blade down, batting away the chain seconds before it could make contact with her boot. Another struck out, and she smacked it away. Again and again until her arms ached and her eyes burned with the effort to track the movements of the attacking metal. This was a test, and if she could think through it, then it would be beatable. What were these chains trying to prove? Amaryllis stilled, letting the shackles sweep over her boots and twist around her legs. For too long, she'd feared being chained down, held back, forgotten. The links climbed to her waist and pulled. With a yelp, Amaryllis hit the ground. With a powerful tug, the chains wrenched her forward. It took everything in her to maintain a grip on her sword. She gritted her teeth and let them take her. The writhing bonds jerked her to the center of the ring, depositing her in a heap. Just as quickly as they'd stolen her, they unraveled and vanished. Amaryllis blinked, sitting up, wincing at new bumps and bruises. Across the ring, Iris stood from her own tangle, blood beading on her busted lip. So, she still fought. Tightening her grip on her sword, Amaryllis braced her feet and sprinted. Iris blocked. The impact of their clashing blades sent a jolt through Amaryllis's arm. She cried out before gritting her teeth and leaning her weight against her foe. Iris stumbled beneath the attack, scrambling backward to create distance. Amaryllis charged and collided with an invisible barrier. Her forehead hit hard, and spots danced across her vision. She groaned and touched a hand to her head. For a moment, everything was fire and pain, and then a slow, silvery fog crept across the barrier. A shiver swept Amaryllis's spine, and sweat turned her hilt slick in her grasp. "What are you doing, daughter? When I faced the ring, I'd won by now." The voice sent goosebumps prickling across her skin. Amaryllis rotated and found her father standing with his arms crossed. Hard lines carved his face, and deep-set disappointment sparked in his gaze. "I'm trying," she whispered. Oh, how she hated the way her voice shook. "Try harder." Her chin trembled, but she tightened her hold on her sword and straightened her shoulders. But her father didn't miss that telltale wobble. He never had. "Crying gets you nothing, girl. Hard work. It's the only way to get results." She shrank beneath his glower. How could she still feel so small, even after all these years? "You are my greatest disappointment." With a snap of his cloak, her father turned his back on her and vanished into the mist. Amaryllis stared after him, wishing for all the world that the torches surrounding the ring could warm the coldness inside her chest. "He's right, you know. You can do better than this." Oliver appeared at her side. "He never understood. I'm not him. I've always tried, and I've never—" Her voice broke. Oliver's lips curled in a sneer, and he took a step back. That prickling coldness spread across her torso. Amaryllis reached for his wrist, but he moved farther away. "Oliver?" "I never knew you were this weak." He shook his head and backed toward the edge of the ring, silver mist swirling around his legs. "How could you ever rule a kingdom?" Hot liquid burned across her vision, and she blinked hard. A hot tear slipped down her cheek. "He's right! How could you ever think you could rule?" Iris lunged for her. What fears did the ring offer Iris that left her so preoccupied with Amaryllis's? Worse, how had she conquered them so quickly? With a cry, Amaryllis exchanged her blow with an attack of her own. Their blades clashed, the sound echoing throughout the stadium. The mist danced around the pair, weaving between their legs and their swords. Iris's blade bit into Amaryllis's bicep. She cried out, clamping her hand to the wound. "Give up now, and we can forget this ever happened." Iris loomed over her. Warm blood seeped between her fingers, but Amaryllis glared at her cousin. No doubt some kind of execution or assassination accompanied that forgetting. Give up? Never! She charged. Iris stumbled beneath the onslaught of her attack. Amaryllis struck again and again, channeling every ounce of pain into the blows. "Who did you see in the mist?" she demanded. "There is nothing I fear," Iris snarled. The pair circled the ring, weapons clashing until both princesses panted, sweat running down their faces. Sharp pain pulsed in Amaryllis's arm, and it took everything in her to ignore the blood turning her sleeve warm and sticky. Iris wore a fierce scowl as she targeted Amaryllis's wounded side, keeping her dancing to avoid the attacks. She couldn't keep on the defensive forever. Amaryllis stepped in close until they were shoulder to shoulder, pushing with all her might. Iris growled and rammed her pommel into Amaryllis's forearm. She screamed, pulling her arm close to her middle, nausea churning in her stomach, darkness flowing into the corners of her vision even as static pulsed in her ears. A punch sent her staggering to one knee, the ring and the torches surrounding it swimming before her. Iris stalked forward. For a moment, all Amaryllis saw was Iris's father standing over her, a dagger in hand. Iris positioned behind him. Like the night when her world shattered, Amaryllis folded in on herself, small against an enemy she wasn't strong enough to fight. Iris struck again, her backhand sending Amaryllis's head snapping to the side. She bit her tongue, tasting blood. Amaryllis collapsed, cheek pressed to the grains of sand. "Stay down," her cousin hissed. Stay down. It's what the faithful servant whispered in her ear when he slipped her body into that pool of mud. Stay down. The only thing that had saved her when the rest of her family had perished. But she couldn't stay down. Not this time. More than her own life hung in the balance. A kingdom weighed heavy on her shoulders, and she couldn't be the one to let it fall. "Amaryllis!" The voice sounded like Oliver's. She scanned the crowd, found his deep, warm, familiar gaze, and pushed to her feet. She wasn't dead. Why wasn't she dead? Iris had plenty of time to run her through, but the pounding in her temple and the pain in her arm assured Amaryllis she lived. She blinked, clearing the last of the haze from her vision, and found herself face to face with her own reflection. Only the girl across from her looked like a queen should. Crimson gown embroidered with gold, hair pulled into an elegant updo, a glistening crown upon her brow. Amaryllis's mouth ran dry. The reflection blinked at her, watching, waiting. For what? Amaryllis searched the ring, but Iris was nowhere to be seen. She circled the mirror, but no ambush from her cousin hit her. Amaryllis returned once more to her reflection. The queenly girl studied her once more. Amaryllis evaluated her in return. Her reflection appeared so grown up, strong and confident in her role. Could Amaryllis ever be her? One way to find out. Amaryllis pressed her fingers to the glass. It rippled and shimmered beneath her touch. She stepped through. A glistening white unicorn waited on the other side, a vining pink flower twisting around each of his hind legs. The mythical stallion stomped a hoof, head lowered, sharp horn aimed at Amaryllis's chest. Her heart stalled at the sight of her family's crest come to life. The unicorn snorted, and with one last shake of his mane, he charged. Amaryllis's legs quaked, and yet she couldn't bring herself to raise her blade. The ground shook, and dirt kicked up as the unicorn raced across the ring, the sweet scent of the vining flowers flowing after him. Amaryllis fell to her knees, head bowed. Better to be taken out by this creature than by her cousin. Hundreds of her ancestors had worn the unicorn's crest, and if he judged her unworthy now, so be it. The unicorn struck, but no pain flared. Warmth passed through her, and Amaryllis raised her head. The unicorn dissolved to nothing. Iris waited, sword clutched tight, hair disheveled, eyes wild. Amaryllis tightened her grip on her own weapon, arm aching as she did so. Time to end this. Agreed, Iris's gaze seemed to say. They ran toward one another. The clash of their blades was deafening. Iris's sword became a blur as she struck at Amaryllis, time after time. Her middle, her neck, her legs. Amaryllis fought to keep the weapon at bay, her wounds throbbing with every strike. Her own sword glanced off Iris's breastplate. No cut, but perhaps the bruise would be enough to slow her down. Another sweep of her blade opened a wound on Iris's thigh. Not deep enough to stop her, but the flow of blood promised pain. Iris screamed and quickened her attack. Sand shifted beneath Amaryllis's boots as she fought to keep her life. Iris kicked, foot connecting with Amaryllis's middle, knocking the wind from her lungs. She doubled over, struggling to breathe. Iris's sword arced toward her neck. Amaryllis dropped to the sand, the whoosh of air over her head raising the hair on her scalp. She rolled, ramming into Iris's legs, knocking her to the ground. Iris's sword was struck from her grasp, skittering across the ring. Amaryllis straddled her cousin. Iris gritted her teeth, seething and writhing beneath Amaryllis's weight. But she kept her seat, knees pinning her cousin's arms down. She lowered the tip of her sword to Iris's neck. "Yield!" Her cousin glowered, teeth clenched tight. Amaryllis pushed the sword tip closer until a thin line of blood trickled down her neck. "Fine!" Iris's spittle hit Amaryllis's face. "I yield!" The torches around the ring blew out, then reignited, one by one. The crowd roared and cheered wildly. Ever so slowly, Amaryllis stood, body shaking as hollers from the crowd washed over her. She'd done it. She'd won. Iris shuffled backward in the sand, one hand clamped over the wound on her leg. "Yes!" Oliver whooped as he jumped from the stands, raced into the ring, and pulled Amaryllis into a crushing hug. In that moment, it didn't matter that pain burned through her arm or that her legs trembled as adrenaline left her body. All she could do was cling to him and bury her face in his neck. "My lady!" Grimson's voice broke them apart. Amaryllis faced the steward, chin trembling as she took in her father's closest ally and the crown in his hands. "Are you ready?" No, she never would be. But she'd faced the ring, and her people deserved better than to be ruled by the usurpers who'd murdered the royal family. "Yes." The word came out breathless. "Kneel!" Amaryllis took to one knee in the sand, hugging her injured arm close. Oliver hovered behind her, there if needed. "Do you, Princess Amaryllis, pledge to serve your people with justice and mercy for all of your days?" "I do." Her words were strong, filled with every ounce of conviction that had kept her alive all these years. He smiled. "Then I dub you Queen." He lowered the tiara to her head. "All hail Queen Amaryllis!" Oliver extended a hand, helping her rise as the crowd chanted her name. "You did it," he murmured in her ear. "No, we did it." She squeezed his hand. A war cry sounded from her left. Amaryllis spun to find Iris charging her, sword poised for the kill. For one dreadful moment, Amaryllis groped for a sword she no longer held. In the next instant, Oliver blocked the blow with her discarded weapon, twisted, and sent Iris's sword skittering across the ring. "No!" her cousin screamed. Oliver stood before Amaryllis, his wide stance blocking any further attempts at violence, his chin cocked high. "I wouldn't try that again." Oliver's voice rumbled with more warning than even the words themselves implied. A pair of guards moved forward, each taking one of Iris's arms, and hauled her away as she cursed Amaryllis's name. Amaryllis touched Oliver's shoulder, hoping he could read the thanks in her eyes. The crowd renewed their roar of approval. A crown didn't make her a queen, but these people did. and she swore in her heart to serve them to the best of her ability for all her days. I hope you enjoyed listening to Queen's Game by Ashley Schaller, narrated by Karyne Norton. If you want to read more by Ashley, go to ashleyschaller.com to find more of her books. This particular story was featured in the anthology Tales, Scales, and Tiaras by Quill and Flame. So if you want more stories from Quill and Flame authors, that's another great place to look. I'll have a direct link for it in the show notes. Don't forget to enter this month's giveaway, which features over a dozen books from our past and current featured authors. You can find the entry form at findingfantasyreads.com/giveaway. If you haven't already, subscribe to Finding Fantasy Reads on whatever app you use to listen to the podcast. It lets you automatically download new episodes as they come in, but it also helps increase the podcast's visibility on podcast platforms, which helps both authors and listeners find the show. This next week, I'll be putting up the form for all of you to place your votes for the Finding Fantasy Reads Awards. I love being able to celebrate the authors we've featured in this way, and I need your help to do it. During Season 3, we've featured over 40 authors and stories, and I want to know which ones were your favorites. Voting will take just a minute or less. The link isn't live yet, but it will be next week at findingfantasyreads.com/vote. Don't miss your chance to reward the authors of the stories you've loved. I'll have links for all the sites I've mentioned in the show notes. Thanks so much for listening, and happy reading.